A trip meant for healing. The vanishing of Elisa Lam. Elisa Lam's tragic death happened years ago, but that doesn't mean the world has forgotten. Her story keeps resurfacing, proof that real life can be far stranger than the most twisted plot in any film. Elisa Lam was 21 years old, born in China. In 2003, her family, her father, mother, Elisa, and her younger sister, emigrated from mainland China to Vancouver, Canada. The city had a thriving Chinese community, and the Lams quickly found their footing. They rented a small Chinese restaurant and lived a quiet, measured life. According to neighbors and regular customers, they were warm, respectful, and well-liked. Elisa had dark eyes, dark hair, and spoke fluent English. She was nearsighted and wore glasses or lenses. At the time of her death, she was a first-year student at the University of British Columbia, ranked 40th out of over 17,000 universities worldwide. She was responsible, hard-working, and held part-time jobs, first in retail, later at a bank. Elisa loved to travel, and not having a companion never stopped her. She'd visited Washington State, Ottawa, Toronto, and even the Niagara Falls, alone. In late 2012, she was planning a solo trip to Los Angeles, hoping it would help her recover from a recent breakup. In December, she ended a relationship. In January 2013, she received a Christmas bonus from her job. She told her sister she wanted to travel to the US to clear her head, escape the weight of heartbreak, and feel something new. She had the money. Her parents approved. The journey began in San Diego. Elisa arrived there on January 22nd. On the 26th, she traveled to Los Angeles and checked into a place called the Cecil Hotel. Here's where the real darkness begins. The Cecil Hotel was built in the 1920s, an elegant 15-story structure, originally intended for wealthy travelers and businessmen. Its marble lobby, stained glass windows, and Art Deco architecture once promised class and glamour. But that dream rotted fast. Soon enough, the owners shifted their business model, offering long-term stays at bargain prices. The reputation of the hotel spiraled. What was once a prestigious establishment quickly became a dilapidated stop for transients, addicts, and the desperate. By the 2000s, Cecil was barely clinging to its 3-star rating, its halls soaked with stories of decay and death. Two of the most infamous guests? Serial killers. Richard Ramirez, better known as the Night Stalker, stayed at the Cecil multiple times during his reign of terror in 1985. He killed 19 people, men and women, young and old, with no common pattern. He believed himself a disciple of Satan. Ramirez often changed hotels, and while he never killed within the walls of the Cecil, he did sleep there, possibly fresh from murder. Then there was Jack Unterweger, an Austrian journalist and minor celebrity. He hosted a popular crime show in Europe, wrote articles, published books. In Vienna, prostitutes began turning up dead. Unterweger reported on the killings. He worked with the police, and he was the one doing the killing. He murdered 11 women in total. In 1991, he stayed at the Cecil for several weeks. While in Los Angeles, he strangled 3 more women. Again, not within the hotel. But its shadow loomed over his crimes. But it wasn't just killers who checked in. It was the dying. The Cecil became infamous for suicides. Helen Gurney, 1954, jumped from the 7th floor. She was gravely ill and had given up fighting. Julia Moore, 1962, leapt from the 8th floor, pregnant abandoned by the father of her child, financially cornered. Pauline Otten plunged from the 9th floor after an argument with her husband. Her body landed on a pedestrian, George Giannini. Both died instantly. Then came murder. Goldie Osgood, a retired telephone operator, was raped and murdered in her room in 1964. Her killer was eventually caught, but the stain lingered. After Elisa Lam disappeared, these stories resurfaced like oil on water. Journalists feasted on the hotel's past, dubbing the Cecil a lair of evil and a magnet for dark forces. But beneath the mystique lay a harsher, more grounded truth. The hotel bordered Skid Row, one of LA's most troubled neighborhoods. In the 1940s, nearly half the city's crimes occurred there. Serial killers weren't drawn to Cecil by ghosts. They were drawn by opportunity, a place to blend in, a place where the missing might stay missing. And as for the suicides, most were people crushed by debt, addiction, or loneliness. They came to Cecil because it was cheap. They died there because they had nowhere else to go. Only one confirmed murder had taken place inside the Cecil in nearly 90 years. That's not a haunted hotel. That's a reflection of poverty, decay, and indifference. A mirror to the forgotten corners of a city. Still, it was into this building, with its flickering lights and haunted reputation, that Elisa Lam checked in. Elisa Lam checked into the Cecil Hotel on January 26th. She planned to stay for 5 nights, checking out on February 1st. According to hotel staff, she was quiet, polite, and spent most of her time outside the building. She asked for nothing. She made no trouble. What Elisa did between January 26th and 29th remains unclear. On the 29th, she posted a brief update to her Tumblr. "I'm staying at the most god-awful hotel." By god-awful, I mean tacky. But it was built in 1928. It's Art Deco. So, yeah, it's cool. She joked that Baz Luhrmann should have filmed The Great Gatsby there. That was the last time Elisa would leave a digital trace in her own words. January 30th is a blank. On January 31st, hotel staff saw her in the lobby, talking on the phone with her parents. Later that day, around noon, she visited a nearby bookstore. The clerk described her as cheerful, thoughtful, asking about books to take home as gifts. That was the last confirmed sighting. On February 1st, she didn't call home. Elisa was close with her family, especially her parents. They had a standing agreement. She would check in with them daily, no exceptions. It wasn't a rule, it was a bond, and she never broke it. By the evening of February 1st, her father grew concerned. When calls went unanswered, he contacted the hotel directly. The front desk told him that her reservation had expired and she hadn't extended her stay. Her room had already been cleared out. Her belongings were in storage. No one knew where she was. The Lam family wasted no time. That same night, they contacted the LAPD and filed a missing persons report. Officers helped them write up a formal statement, dated February 1st. By February 4th, the case was handed off to the LAPD's Homicide and Major Crimes Division. This was unusual. No evidence of foul play had surfaced. There were no signs of struggle, no reports of violence. But something about the case unsettled the detectives. Whether it was intuition, a pattern, or a quiet alarm, they decided not to wait. The best of the best took over. On February 5th, investigators arrived at the Cecil Hotel. They brought in cadaver dogs. Every hallway, every floor, even the maintenance levels were searched. The roof was locked, accessible only by keycard. Any entry would trigger a silent alarm to security. No alarms had gone off, no access had been logged. Still, the dogs were led up there. Nothing. No scent. No trace. That same day, detectives seized all available CCTV footage from the hotel, along with nearby ATMS, building cameras, and street surveillance. They were handed over 800 hours of footage, all focused on the window between January 31st and February 1st. And then, they found it. A recording that would ripple across the internet like shock waves. A video that would haunt a generation. Elisa Lam, alone in an elevator, just hours before she died. It was the last footage ever recorded of Elisa Lam. Surveillance from one of the hotel's security cameras showed her stepping into the elevator. The timestamp was missing. The footage edited, slowed in some places, sped up in others. Certain sections were missing altogether. The date and time had been deliberately blurred. It wasn't filmed, as the police first claimed, on January 31st between 2 and 3 p.m. It was likely recorded on the morning of February 1st. The delay in releasing it, until February 13th, gave investigators time to verify witness accounts and possibly cut out anything compromising. The clip begins with Elisa entering the elevator on the 14th floor, the top residential level of the Cecil Hotel. She's wearing the same clothes that would later be found in the water tank: a red hoodie with a zipper, black shorts, a green t-shirt. She isn't wearing her glasses. She bends low toward the control panel, squinting, trying to make out the numbers. Her movements are calm. She presses several buttons, including the door hold. Then, she moves to the back corner of the elevator. She waits. The doors don't close. After a few moments, she steps forward and peeks out, first to her left, then to her right. She presses herself against the wall, as if trying to become invisible, then quickly retreats, her body stiff with anticipation. It looks playful, like a game of hide and seek. There's no panic, no fear. She edges forward again, leans out to look down the hallway, and then leaps out of the elevator with both feet, disappearing from view. A second later, the hem of her skirt and her shoulder reappear in the frame as she lingers just outside. She raises her hands above her head, as if fixing her hair. The gesture is slow, relaxed. Then she re-enters the elevator. Her arms move wide, unnaturally so. She seems emotionally charged, but not afraid. Some experts who reviewed the footage said she appeared to be laughing. Whatever she was feeling, it wasn't terror. Someone, or something, had stirred amusement, not fear. She bends down again, pressing multiple buttons with both hands. Her fingers dance across the panel in a strangely frantic rhythm. Then she walks out. As she passes the mirrored wall across from the elevator, she adjusts her hair again, fixing herself up, as if about to meet someone. Her elbows are lifted, her body confident, almost self-conscious. And that's when she smiles. Not a big, beaming grin, just a small, crooked, maybe even nervous smile. But it's there. Analysts noted the expression. It wasn't fear, it was flirtation. Outside the elevator, she turns left, vanishing from the camera's view. The doors open and close twice more. She's gone. What happened after that? No one knows for sure. But experts agree on one thing. Elisa wasn't hallucinating. People under the influence of psychosis or drugs display erratic, disorganized movement, often detached from their environment. Elisa's body language was consistent, measured, intentional. She was interacting with someone just out of frame. Someone who knew the cameras were watching. February 19th, 2013. The case had gone cold. Elisa Lam had been missing for nearly 3 weeks. No new evidence, no leads. Then came the water complaints. That morning, guests at the Cecil Hotel began reporting a foul taste and a strange, dark color in their tap water. Some mentioned low pressure. Others described the water as black, oily, or even smelling of decay. The hotel had its own rooftop water system, 4 cylindrical tanks, each holding around 7,500 liters. They supplied the building with drinking water, water for showers, sinks, and the cafe on the ground floor. Maintenance worker Santiago Lopez climbed up to check. At around 10 a.m., he reached the roof. The tanks were heavy, sealed, elevated on concrete platforms. He climbed a ladder and opened one of the lids. What he saw changed everything. Floating inside, bloated and pale from weeks of decomposition, was a naked female body. At 12:49 p.m., a police officer filed the first official report. Floating female body observed inside hotel water tank. By 1 p.m., fire trucks, police cruisers, and hazmat units lined the street outside the Cecil. Aerial footage was broadcast live from helicopters. Reporters swarmed the surrounding rooftops. Viewers across Los Angeles watched in real time as emergency responders worked to extract the body. At 3:45 p.m., it was finally pulled from the tank. At 4 p.m., the identity was confirmed. Elisa Lam. There was no doubt. The same red hoodie, the same t-shirt, the same shorts and sandals seen in the elevator video were recovered from inside the tank. Along with them, black lace underwear, a pair of black sandals, a green men's t-shirt, size large, a pair of black shorts, men's, size medium, a red fleece hoodie, size extra small, a hotel keycard, a wristwatch. But other items were conspicuously missing. Her phone, her wallet, her prescription glasses. All gone. Nowhere near the tank. Not in her room. Never found. The condition of the body was strange. The autopsy revealed 2 abrasions under her knees, 2.5 centimeters on the right leg, 1 centimeter on the left. There were no other injuries. No water in the lungs. There were petechial hemorrhages inside her eyelids, tiny red spots caused by pressure as blood vessels burst. These are classic signs of asphyxiation. Her nasal passages weren't blocked. There was no foam in her mouth, another indicator that drowning was unlikely. Her lungs were dry. That was not death by drowning. The official ruling? Accidental drowning due to bipolar disorder. The public reaction was immediate and fierce. Why declare drowning when the evidence said otherwise? Why label it an accident when so much was unexplained? And why was the hotel's rooftop even accessible in the first place? People demanded answers, and the LAPD gave them none. June 21st, 2013. The LAPD closed the case. The final report was stark. Cause of death, accidental drowning, influenced by bipolar disorder. No signs of trauma, no evidence of foul play, no suspects. Case closed. It was the cleanest possible conclusion, on paper. But to many, it felt like a betrayal. The public, the press, even some in law enforcement. Nobody could square the official story with the facts. How could a 21-year-old woman undress, climb into a sealed tank, and drown? Without leaving fingerprints, without triggering alarms, without leaving any sign of struggle. To accept that explanation, one had to ignore nearly everything that was known about Elisa Lam. Start with the medical evidence. Elisa had 2 abrasions under her knees, fresh, but minor. There were no signs of sexual assault, but there was evidence of recent sexual activity. The coroner noted petechiae in her eyes, caused by a sudden blockage of air, not by water in the lungs. There was no foam, no froth, no water in her airway. Drowning victims always show those signs. Elisa didn't. Toxicology revealed only faint traces of her prescribed medication. The dosage was low. The drugs had been metabolized hours, if not days, before her death. There were no illegal substances, no alcohol, no overdose. She was sober. She was lucid. What about suicide? The LAPD leaned heavily into that theory. Mental illness, a recent breakup, a solo trip. Classic red flags, they said. But professionals weren't convinced. Elisa's psychiatrist, Sarah Scarf, had treated her for years. She was a respected doctor, a university lecturer, and had no history of malpractice. According to her, Eliza showed no signs of suicidal ideation. She had been stable, compliant, fully capable of traveling alone. People with suicidal tendencies often give warnings, direct or subtle. Elisa gave none. She never made previous attempts. She had a structured medication plan and was known to follow it. She sought therapy. She maintained contact with family. She was still making plans. In short, she was managing, not spiraling. And there's more. Women who choose suicide almost never strip naked. They don't want to be found exposed. They avoid violence. They choose pills. They choose quiet. They don't climb into tanks of cold water on rooftops. They don't do what Elisa did, unless someone else was involved. The elevator video added fuel to the fire. Her movements weren't erratic. They were flirtatious, curious. She smiled. She leaned. She adjusted her hair. Her posture was relaxed. She wasn't hallucinating. She wasn't panicking. She was with someone. Someone just off camera. The footage had been tampered with. There's no debate. The timestamp was scrubbed. Several frames were missing. The speed was inconsistent. Why? What had to be hidden? Perhaps a shadow, a figure, a face. Someone she trusted. Someone who smiled back. And yet, despite all this, the LAPD stuck to their story. The autopsy said drowning. So drowning it was. The bruises were minor. The timeline was hazy. No sign of a struggle. No crime. And if there's no crime, there's no killer. And if there's no killer, there's no need for a case. The truth? They gave up. They chose the simplest answer. They blamed the dead. Let's imagine just for a moment that Elisa truly chose to end her own life. But what do we know about such choices? They rarely come quietly. They shout, whether in whispers or cries. Those who are drawn to suicide usually leave signs, words, glances, actions that refuse to be forgotten. Elisa? She remained silent. She did not complain, did not ask for help, nor foreshadowed her fate. She called her family, spoke about plans, wrote with a light smile on her blog. She was alive in every gesture, more alive than most. And here's the strangest part. A woman who truly wants to leave rarely chooses a path where she ends up naked, vulnerable, in dark water, atop a stranger's building. She seeks peace, swift relief, not torment. So why did Elisa put on her clothes, then take them off? Why did she play with her reflection, flirt with the emptiness of the elevator? Why smile and laugh if inside there was a war raging? Answers blur like shadows on the walls of the Cecil. But one thing is clear. Her story holds many unsaid words. If it wasn't suicide, then someone else was there. Someone who knew the cameras, who skillfully hid in the shadows. Someone who left her alone with cold water, where light disappears and only the call of despair remains. And here, the simple story ends, and the true nightmare begins. The elevator footage, an eerie, haunting dance of light and shadow, offers a glimpse into Elisa's final moments. Her movements are deliberate, yet playful, as if caught between two worlds, the visible and the unseen. She presses buttons, holds the door, then hides in the corner, peeking nervously into the hallway. There's no panic, only a strange blend of curiosity and hesitation. She smiles, laughs quietly, as though sharing a private joke with someone only she can see. Her gestures are flirtatious, almost teasing, as she adjusts her hair and catches her reflection in the mirrored wall. It's a performance of normalcy, a fleeting moment of levity amid an unfolding tragedy. But who was she waiting for? The answer lies just beyond the frame. Someone who knew the cameras, someone who understood the hotel's shadows and secrets. The footage has been edited, timestamps blurred, frames removed. What they chose to hide is as chilling as the water where Elisa's body was found. Her fate was sealed not by chance, but by choice. Someone else's. The rooftop of the Cecil Hotel holds its secrets tight. Behind locked doors and silent alarms, a grim truth waits to be uncovered. The fire escapes offer a way up, exposed, vulnerable, yet surprisingly easy to climb. Journalists and thrill seekers have slipped up there before, chasing shadows and rumors. Elisa likely followed this path, perhaps with someone she trusted. A companion who seemed harmless at first. Their playful moments in the elevator hint at a bond, fragile yet real, before everything unraveled. The killer's hands were cold and precise. No struggle, no screams, just the slow squeeze of an unforgiving grip around Elisa's neck. 15 seconds, the time it takes for consciousness to fade into oblivion. No marks, no evidence left behind. The silent murder of a young woman in a city that looks the other way. Then the body was lifted, dropped into the water tank, a watery tomb hidden from view, a cruel final act to erase her existence. Why was Elisa's phone missing? Her glasses? Her wallet? Items that should have anchored her to the world vanished without a trace. The killer took them, trophies or evidence to be hidden away forever. Why did the police close the case so quickly, so neatly? Was it the lack of witnesses, the absence of a clear motive, or something darker? A system reluctant to dig too deep into a story, too tangled with secrets and shadows? The world watched the live extraction of Elisa's body, the shock rippling through newsrooms and living rooms alike. Yet the answer slipped through everyone's fingers like water, cold, elusive, and unforgiving. Her death remains a puzzle with missing pieces, a story told in whispers and half-glimpsed shadows. The truth waits beneath the surface, just out of reach, waiting for someone to uncover it.